Here. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Okay. So,
Okay.
stand as you're
And
able.
for our opening song, we welcome you, Spirit. It's going to be a little bit different today, a little bit different beat. So it's the right song though. So we're gonna try it. So yeah, my fault. We welcome you, Spirit, as we gather to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. We welcome you, Spirit, as we gather here to love one another in ways you make clear. We lift up our hearts in joy and open our minds. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time. We welcome you, Spirit, in this holy time.
I what?
Nothing.
Okay.
I
I did the lyrics last night, and as I'm going through them today with Lo, there are a few typos and a few repeats not in there. So if anybody feels a strong desire to clean it up, I'd be glad to let you do that. So let me know. Um, I wanted to tell you that I went to see Roshni's show last night, Christmas in Cairo, and it was really, Tracy went with me, and we went last year, and I really enjoyed this year even more than I did last year. I was sorry that it was a smaller group, but every penny went to the Home of the Innocents. She has a sponsor who paid for the location and paid for the food, and so everything went to the performers. Give their time, and they will get every penny that was collected. Plus, part of the admission was a new toy. So it was money that we paid and then the new toys too. So it felt really, really good to be a part of that and to be supportive of that. And Pat's going to go, what? What did she say? I think we're going to take some of our tithe. We just bought the stuff for two boys, 12 and I can't remember the age of the other one, at Euspiritus. And so we bought Christmas for them. But Tracy and I shopped and bought what they always give you a list. And they tell you don't buy everything on their list, but if you could get something fun and clothing and that sort of thing. So we just did that, and we have everything from black um, baseball caps, that look cool, to a hair sponge that we didn't know what that was, and to a CD player and football and a soccer ball and all that kind of stuff. So we did that in Home of the Innocents. I asked the lady what they needed, and what they need is that they need toiletries, shampoos and soaps and whatever else young teenage boys. One of the boys asked for deodorant, and so of course we bought him that. And so we're going to do some of that. We're going to spend some of our tithe in that direction. And I just wanted to say that if you wanted to do that, feel free to bring it next week. After next week, I'll be taking it to the Home of Innocence, and it'll be, take it. They also take gently used clothing. They have some adult size teenage kids. And this year, with the opioid, is that right? Epidemic, they're more because they have, and so they have older children and they need more help. So if you had something, that you think a teenager would wear, so I'm thinking sweatshirts or t-shirts. you know, I don't know very many teenagers that do that, but if you have that you would like to share, then feel free to bring that too. But keep in mind that it should be in really nice shape. Okay, we don't want to take them anything that looks like it's been worn a lot, that kind of thing. But I know I've got things that I maybe have worn twice and that I could share, and I will be doing that. Yes,
So if we have something, it's okay to bring it here,
yes,
fit in your car, and then you'll take it from there. Is that
yes.
okay?
Um, shirt you have on, that long sleeve shirt would be something. Jackets. Yeah, yeah, take it off. Take it off right now. But that kind of thing. And jackets, they all need warm clothing, gloves and jackets and hats and that sort of thing. So it's just another way of celebrating this time of the year by actively giving. So um, I wanted to tell you about Roshni's thing. Pat made me a cheat sheet so I wouldn't forget what I was supposed to do. So I'm going to bring it to the top so that I make sure I do it right. Okay, we light the first tree, and each of us is individuals. We know that we are this incredible light. And we know that that is true of each other as well, that we are each and every one the light to share, love to share, to be. And so we look and see is Paula, God, and Pat, Tammy, and Lo, everyone here as Spirit, God. And that to the right Spirit, the whole of it, all of it, the absolute of it, the joy of life, the health of our bodies, the prosperity of every our lives, the abundance of having more to give. And so it is.
All is in divine order. There are times when I might not recognize all things work together for good. When I align my thoughts with the divine and open myself to ideas, I come to realize that my life is indeed in order. Looking back on times when circumstances were not going the way I wanted, I now see those experiences led to blessings. Affirming all is in divine order shifts my consciousness away from thoughts of limitation or lack to infinite possibilities of all that is good. I need not concern myself with how things will work out. I only need to hold to my faith that they will. I affirm divine order and know that however my life unfolds, it will be for my highest good. The affirmation with this is, do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. And so it is.
So it is.
So today, just like last week, we're going to be doing our group singing for his face. There we go. Nice job.
Very nice. Thank you. In a rural part of the country, there was a group of men who would meet once a month. They were farmers and ranchers and businessmen, and they always had a minister who would open the meeting, and then they'd all have breakfast together. And it was one of their favorite things to do. Well, they invited an Episcopal bishop to come and to speak to them who was going to be in town, and they assumed that he would do the opening blessing. And so they got there, and the bishop looked around and he thought, So he went up to an old guy, and he said, I think you should bring the blessing. And he said, Oh, Bishop, no, I really think you should. Okay. So when it came time, the old guy stood up and he said, God, I just do not like flour. I just don't. And one eye on the bishop came open. What? He said, God, I just don't like shortening. I just don't like it. And two eyes on the bishop came open, and he's looking at him. And then he said, Oh, God, I don't like buttermilk either. I know it's part of the bounty of the world, but I don't like buttermilk at all. And the bishop was just about to push his chair back and take over. This was not going the way he thought. And then the old man said, But God, when you mix it all together and you make biscuits, ooh, I like that a lot. And then the bishop smiled. You know, we have things in our lives that if you look at them individually, we don't like. But if we will allow Spirit to mix them all together in the perfect balance, we'll like it a lot, really a lot. I love that little story because I can just see that bishop, you know, one eye open, two eyes open, you know, getting ready. And then all of a sudden he just relaxes and takes a deep breath. And he was thinking that he knew what the man would say when he got up to bless the food. And he was totally surprised with what he actually said. And so we do that too. We have our expectations. This is the way things are supposed to happen. These are the things that people are supposed to say. And when they don't, we get a little discombobulated. And we may be like the bishop where we decide that we need to take over and fix it. So, but we don't have to do that. That's not our job. Our job is to let Spirit do what Spirit does. The other thing that we may think is that there's a right way and a wrong way. Okay, there's a right way to pray and there's a wrong way to pray. There's a right way to be a friend and there's a wrong way to be a friend. There's a right way to be um, a center and a wrong way to be a center. There's a right way to handle problems, and there's a wrong way. There's a right, there's a wrong. There's a right, there's a wrong. But the truth is, they're just things that have not yet come together. They are things that have not come to an understanding with each other. Because when we say somebody is wrong, we just don't understand them. We don't understand what's driving them. We don't understand what's back of what they're saying. And we have the opportunity to do that, to say that we will move to an understanding. And that's where we want to be. Um, we have some things going on as a center. And so I called, Vicki recommended, and I had thought about it, and I called Dr. Chris Michaels. Because the last time he was here, we had a really nice lunch together, and he was very supportive. And so I was chatting with him, and I said, you know, when you were here the last time and did the seminar, you talked about the Hindu gods, and one is the creator, the maintainer, and the destroyer. I said, I feel like we're in, you know, I feel like we're in destroyer, you know, because we've got a lot of things that are not happening that I think should be happening, and things that are happening that I don't think should be happening. And um, and so he said, well, it really shouldn't be destroyer. It should be the deconstructor, deconstructor, taking apart and examining each individual part and then rebuilding. And so he recommended that we look at all the different parts and pieces that are happening and see what it is that we want to change. You know, our special music where we're all singing together and we're blending. Well, we have feedback. How is that? Did you enjoy that? We like it, but do you? You know, is it something that feeds you or is it something that distracts you? We need to know. There's a lot of things we need to know. I watch the Food Channel when Bob's not home, and or he's doing something else, and you know, I never learned anything for the Food Channel. Like I'm not a better cook, but it's fun to watch them. And the first time that the guy said, "I'm serving you a deconstructed hamburger," and I thought, what the heck is a deconstructed hamburger? And he had all the elements of a hamburger on the plate. You know, he had a patty, he had tomatoes, he had lettuce. But the lettuce wasn't what you would normally think of. The tomatoes were seasoned their own way. And then he had all these other things there. And then he had a sauce over all of it, and it wasn't Miracle Whip. Wait a minute, hamburgers have Miracle Whip on them, right? That's the way to have a hamburger. But it was deconstructed. He rethought each of the elements and said, how can I make them better? And then he looked at the sauce and said, how can I tie them together so it's not individual things on the plate, but that it's one plate with one presentation and one flavor and one enjoyment. And so that was my first idea of deconstructing something in that way. I had not ever heard of deconstructing a hamburger before. And so when we deconstruct, it's not that we're saying anything has to go. We may say that sooner or later, but we're saying we're going to look at this element. We're going to look at all the elements that have brought us to this place. We want to look at where we want to go and how do we get there and what pieces work for us. And so we need lots and lots of feedback and lots of people who want to talk about it. We don't need people who will say, well, that's just wrong and leave it at that. We want people to say, it feels wrong to me. It feels disconnected. That we can work with. Someone just saying, I just don't like it. We can't work with that because we don't know what it is that they don't like. But if they can tell us what it is that they like a lot, that they value highly, or that they wouldn't mind seeing go, that will help us to make better decisions. And once you deconstruct, then you build back. You take the pieces and build them back. Uh, we have a practitioner call that is our distance practitioners. And one of them, actually, she's a minister, I mentioned the quote of, it makes perfect sense on paper. We draw things up, we draw up a plan, and it makes perfect sense on paper. And then we involve people, and it gets really messy. And it never works out quite the way we thought it was going to. And I love that because it's true. We have our own opinions, we have our own preferences, and the plan that can be drawn out and look so great on paper, when you start getting personalities involved, it gets messy. I worked for Coca-Cola Foods, and they changed their names 3 times while I worked for them. And I think they're Coca-Cola North America now. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure. you know, it's part of the Coca-Cola company, and that's enough for me. But we had a consultant group come through, and they convinced our management that they needed to understand what we were each doing. And so they had this wonderful computer program that they had put together, and they had all these forms to fill out, and all these classes to take, and all these things to talk about. And they wanted you to write down what you were doing every 3 minutes. Every 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah, I know. Cassie's going, oh God. You know, that's what we all said. What are you talking about? I can't get any work done if I'm writing down what I'm doing every 3 to 5 minutes. And it just was so, um, in my opinion, and in opinion of most of the people who actually got the work done, a waste of time. It was busy work. And it was the kind of thing that we did all this stuff and we went to all these meetings. And of course, you have a 2 hour meeting, maybe a 3 hour meeting. Well, all your stuff is still sitting on your desk. So right now you're doing nothing. You're sitting in a meeting. So the best laid plans sometimes need to be chucked out the window and forgotten about because they really are not going to work. And so I like to remind myself that when I have a plan, I need to kind of step back and say, looks good on paper, but wait till life, individuals get involved, and then it's not going to look the same. It's not going to look anywhere near the same. Um, so the deconstructing is something that I am encouraging you to think about. I'm encouraging you to think about what it is that works for you, what it is that you would like to see done differently, what it is that you want to offer to us as good input, and what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do? We have Pat and Vicki who come every Sunday. They get here well before 4, and they put all the stuff up back in the back of the room. They lay the ribbons, and they put away all the UEL stuff, and they pull out all of the uh, LCSL stuff. And that's part of what they do, a minor part of what they do. but it would be something that somebody else could do. There's so many things that if you're willing and you may they matter to you that you might want to consider offering. All right. So now in the guidelines that we were, living the science of mind, the chapter that they touch on this for this week is the will to live. And he's talking about we can get so hung up on the pain of our lives, the things that bother us, whether it's a sore toe or a major diagnosis or people around us that are in pain or things that didn't work out the way we thought they were, or just a myriad of things to the point where we don't enjoy life. And we are living waiting for death instead of living just to be living without this whole thing about um, dying, and so the will to live is the will to live fully. I love what he says. He says it's a lot easier to be happy than it is to be sad. It takes a lot less energy to be happy than it does to be sad. And if you think about all the energy that you put into being sad, you know, uh, depression, frustration, all that kind of stuff. And I know somebody out there is saying, but you don't understand. I understand that I don't understand. Okay. I got that. But I'm saying that I have my own stuff too. And I have the choices to make. Am I going to react in a positive way or am I going to react in a negative way? I have a few quirks. Okay, I know that y'all don't, but I have a few quirks. And one of my quirks is that if you tell me it's going to start at 8 o'clock, by God, you start at 8 o'clock. Okay? So Tracy and I went to Roshni's thing last night, and they weren't going to let us in, but they were supposed to be serving hors d'oeuvres at 7 o'clock, and it was 7:35. Well, you mean you're not letting me in? The hors d'oeuvres are getting cold, you know? And so Tracy's not saying a word. And they did let us in, and we got in there, and we found out one of the people wasn't there. Now, she was the last act of the first half, but we delayed everything waiting for her to get there. Why? Why? All we had to do was go on and let the start on time, and she would have been there well before it was her time to do it. But no, we didn't do that. So I'm complaining. I know that y'all don't ever complain, but I'm afraid I do. And so Tracy is like, okay, mom, okay. I said, all right, just tell me to shut up. And so I complained, and she turned to me and she said, shut up. I went, what? What? She said, you told me to. And she was right because it's so easy to fall into complaining. She said, they'll start when they start, and we'll go home when we go home, and don't worry about it. Okay, all right. um, so, but there are choices. I just share that little tidbit of I could see myself complaining. I knew it wasn't doing me any good, and I needed help to break it. And so Tracy's quite willing to help me break things and to point out where I might be doing things differently. But that's why you have children or close friends or parents or whatever. Carl Jung once wrote that he had never seen a neurosis healed permanently that didn't come along with a spiritual awakening. He said somewhere else, you cannot live this life without knowing that you are immortal. You can exist, you can get through life, but you cannot live life, live it, without being convinced and knowing within yourself that you are immortal, that this life is just one phase. Now, whether you believe you come back and live on this earth again, that's up to you. But this is just one of the experiences that you will have that we call life, whether it's here or somewhere else, or if it's a different form, whatever. But that you are immortal, that you will go on after this life is over. And I think that's really really the crux of what we teach. You know, there is one God, and that God is eternal, and so are you. And it doesn't start when you die. I can remember as being a Baptist, and it said eternal life started when you died. I thought, what? Eternal life starts before I was born. It doesn't start when I die. You know, now going to heaven, if you're Baptist, might start when you die, but eternal life, living life, that is yours now. And so, what are you going to do with it? Um, he also tells us to get over it. It is not complicated. It is not hard. How many times have I said, changing your thinking? Oh, it's so hard. No, it's not. It's simple. And that's what I need to remind myself of. You just have a new thought. You just have a new, it's simple. It's not complex. It's not hard. It's not something that you have to struggle to understand. It's simple. Your thoughts create. You don't like what you're creating? Change them. Just do it. And don't worry about it. And I had mentioned before, it takes a lot less energy to live life happy and complete and full and knowing that you are immortal and knowing that life is good than it does to live in fear, to live in angst, to try to control things that are not within your control because you think you have it down right. You know what's right, right? How many people in this room? That's how many people know it's right. And that's how many different rights there are. So, because we none of us can completely understand another. We work at it and we try and we understand naturally, but to really understand everything about another person is not something that we're called to do. So, the only one who can travel the road for us is ourselves. We're the only ones who can make the decision. We're the only ones who can follow the decision. We are the only ones who can make all the change that we want to have made. So, trusting the Spirit, trusting that as we take things apart, whether it's in our life, our center, or whatever, and deconstruct them, that we then will have the opportunity to reconstruct them in the way that we want to, in more of what we um, want to have happen. And if we can trust, like that old guy, that God will make biscuits out of things we don't like, then we've gone a long way down the road to living a life of positive joy and confidence. Okay, um, meditation. One of the things that we're looking at is what kind of meditation would you like? Would you like a guided meditation? Would you like a silent meditation? Would you like music in the background in silence? Or anybody got a preference? Guided with music. Okay, Lo, hit it. First one who speaks gets what he get want. Got, you know. So meditation is taking a moment in time and saying, right here, right now, I am complete and whole. I let go of past regrets, and I may or may not pick them up. I may just leave them. I let go of future concerns and worries. They don't get me anything. So I'm going to let them go for this moment, and who knows? Maybe I'll just let them go completely. And we take a breath. And as we breathe in the air, and we know that we are right here, right now, in the very presence of oneness. We let go of the beliefs that would distract us, that would limit us. And we open to the fullness of Spirit. And we breathe. And we make a commitment, a decision to trust Spirit, to take all the different, sometimes conflicting looks of things happening in our lives and make of them biscuits. And we breathe. And we trust. We stand in confidence, knowing that Spirit is always giving of all that we need and all that we desire. Whatever it has been that has been at the top of your mind that has carried some concern, put it into the hands of Spirit, knowing that it is being created for our good, for our highest good. With a deep breath, we relax and let it be. We know that as we have focused on Spirit, that all that we have desired has been expressed without obstruction. We breathe. And we let it be. We know that it is good. We know that it is done. And together we seal it with the words. And so it is.
As we give, so we receive. As we live, so we believe. And the song we sing just keeps growing sweet. As we know the truth within. As we as we know the truth within. As we give, so we receive. As we live, so we believe. And the song we sing just keeps growing sweeter. As we know the truth within. As we know the truth within. As we know the truth within.
Okay. All right. And so, as we give, so we receive. So we give in joy. We give in joy and in expectation of good and more good. And that's how we receive. And so it is. They're making a circle.
Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, united all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my glorious vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Now there is peace on earth, and it has begun with me. Now there is peace. Now there is peace. Now there is peace. Now there is
Oh God, you know I don't like mushroom soup. Oh God, you know I don't like raw beef. Oh, I would not, Oh God, you know that I do not really like onions. When you, huh? Well, I like noodles. Oh, I like noodles. But God, when you put it all together and make beef tips, I like that a lot. And so bless you, God, and bless each of us as we partake of bounty and we communicate and commune with each other. And so it is.